I look at the camera a little bit.
Yeah.
Good evening. Tonight we have a wonderful cast of guests. I'm Lue Tuosto, and this is Let's Talk. Again, we have some of our guests tonight are going to be talking about the wonderful thing that's happening to us this evening, and they're going to talk about the Warriors, the Santa Cruz Warriors. Yay! We've got two wonderful guests this evening that are going to talk about it in detail, but I want to remind each and every one of you that this, in fact, is your show. Call in. We have got the lines that are going to be open. We have got some great guests, again, that are going to talk about all kinds of stuff, but if you want to go somewhere else, that's where we're going to go. I want to remind you that this is a live broadcast, and we broadcast live the second Thursday of every month from 7:30 to 8:30, and it plays a good 15 to 20 times during the rest of the month. So tonight's your night to call in, and without further ado, I want to introduce two of my guests. And my first guest is Jim Wehrman, and he is the president, serves as the president of the Santa Cruz Warriors and the vice president of the new franchise development for the Golden State Warriors. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you very much for having us. We appreciate coming down.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for being here. It wasn't too far either. You guys have an office almost walking distance from here.
Well, we're almost literally just across the street, so we can keep an eye on you through all these shows and make sure you keep plugging us.
All right. We will. Absolutely. I love it. I've talked to a bunch of folks in the community. Everybody I talk to loves the idea of having you folks in town. So thank you so much for choosing Santa Cruz, and we'll get into why that happened that way. And then we've got the head coach, Nate. I'm not going to try your last name, but he has been the head coach in his second year, and in Santa Cruz, of course, the first year, because this is the first year we've had the team. And he led the last team that you were at to the top of the D-League Eastern Conference. Nate, thank you so much for being here. And pronounce your last name for us.
It's Bjorkgren.
Okay.
And thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Almost as tricky as Tuosto.
Yep.
I'd like to talk a little bit about and get into some of the bio of both of our guests, both of you, because when I read some of the bio, I was blown away. You bring so much to a small community like Santa Cruz, and I'm just really taken by the fact that you're both here and that you bring a bunch of really good stuff. We feel very, and I will say this, blessed to have you in our community. During your 6 seasons with the San Jose Giants, go Giants.
Go Giants.
Yeah, the club established in San Jose. The franchise attendance records 4 times. We're going to talk a little bit about that. That is cool in that we're looking in terms of small business, all the stuff that's going to be brought to the community because of the attendance, because folks being interested in, and we'll talk about it's 2,600 seat stadium that's being built currently, and it's going to be built in tip-off times December 23rd, I understand.
That's correct.
So that is cool. Everybody's working real hard. Small community. I know some folks that are on that project, and they are working.
We are working. We've been working since about January 28th on this, 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day, not quite, but it's been an intense run.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. A couple of things that I wanted to mention, too. The minor league baseball highest honor that you brought to the San Jose Giants, and that was the President's Trophy Award, presented annually to the top minor league franchise in the nation.
That's correct.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's obviously a great honor whenever you're acknowledged by your peers, you know, at any level. But there are over 160 teams in the nation. We won that award. We're the only the second team ever in single A to win the award because it encompasses all the classifications from rookie ball all the way up through AAA. So, you know, we obviously were proud of it, but the award really goes to the fans. It goes to the people who come out, you know, every night supporting the team, whether it's cold and raining or whether it's beautiful and sunny. And it's really something that I think the city earned by embracing the team and being very enthusiastic about what we do.
Excellent. Well, that's great. You've got 25 years in sports and entertainment. This is definitely, you know, something that when you bring that to the table, I think the whole community should be excited about that. Because you know how to promote, you know how to bring people in, you know how to bring fans in, you know how to bring all the things that professional athletic teams bring to a certain community. And you were the director of the Seattle Center, producing rock shows and family touring shows. The NBA Seattle Supersonics you were involved in. Western Hockey League Seattle Thunderbirds. The Seattle Reign, a professional women's basketball team. That was, I'm sure, exciting. I coached some gals at Cabrillo, and when my daughter was playing baseball, and it was really just absolutely enjoyable. Most enjoyable thing, even compared to the Little League kids, the boys.
Right.
The gals are great to work with. You had a lot of experience in what they called the music project. So you bring a whole bunch of stuff, and then also you worked with, I guess, the co-founder of Microsoft, Paul Allen, in Seattle with that project as well.
That's correct.
So you worked with some big names.
Some big names, some little names. I mean, I think Nate will tell you you're only as good as your team, and there's no one person that ever, you know, delivers kind of across the board. It's always a team effort, and it's a cliche because it's true. Not because one just makes it up to deflect it. I mean, it's an essential part of what you do, and in any successful enterprise, certainly in sports. And the city plays a tremendous role in whether or not a sports team is successful. And our job is to figure out the best way to create the links on the business side of what we do. But, you know, Nate's job is to deliver the brand promise and to create those role models and to create the product that's on the floor that people are interested in coming back to and that they get excited about and that they want to cheer about. Unfortunately, as you go through that list, I don't feel like I'm that old, but it's seemingly kind
a lot of life packed in,
slipping
you know.
away here as such. So hopefully we'll be as successful here as our enterprises have been in other places. But you also have got to give a lot of credit to Golden State, our home club. I mean, you know, we haven't been necessarily tearing it up in the playoffs over the years, as everybody knows, but yet we rank 9th in the NBA in terms of attendance, and it's a real testament to the people who have been running that team. That gives us really a great platform to build off of.
Gee. So the attendance thing I'm going to definitely talk about. I want to come back to that. I'm excited about that because there's so much potential there for our community. And quite frankly, as a business person myself, I think you know, I embrace, and I think many of us do, including the city and just about everybody, again, that I've talked to about the potential of folks coming to the games and bringing business to the community. Certainly that's exciting. But you folks do a lot of other things too in the community as well. And when you have players that come in and they coach some of the youth leagues or put on clinics, and they're involved in all kinds of different arenas, so to speak, that it's just not about bringing in fans and bringing in revenue. There's something more that you bring, and a team, a D-League team, brings to the community. Let's talk a little bit about that and how all the success that you've had in the past. How do you see that being duplicated in Santa Cruz? And then another question, why Santa Cruz? I love the community, but you guys have embraced us. Why Santa Cruz?
Well, to take the second question first, I used to live in Capitola a number of years ago and experienced firsthand, I think, the vibrant basketball community that exists here. The high school programs are packed in December and January. I mean, you go to those gyms, you know, you're with 800, 600, and now Aptos at 1,600. Just tremendous excitement, tremendous interest. So you have kind of the core fans to begin with. Secondly, there's nothing else to compete with activity in the off season. You know, the boardwalk is the 800-pound gorilla here, and it ought to be, and it should be, and it's been great, and it's been successful. But obviously, it operates primarily, you know, for the summer and the tourist season. So minor league ball fits. It only works if it fits into the fabric of the community. It's not really an attraction. It's got to be a part of our everyday heartbeats. And if it isn't, if it's something that can't accomplish that, then you can't generate the kinds of successes that have been seen across the country. Santa Cruz really is on the edge of needing a place where families and young adults can come together and plug in. Not only plug in, I talk a lot about how there are very few village greens left in America, that especially through technology we get farther and farther segmented in our own world and within our own communities. This is like a village green. It's going to bring people out. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your economics are. Everybody comes together and they get a chance to face, to share, to really affirm life, to celebrate life.
Sure.
To make that heartbeat work outside of the arena, you got to plug into those organizations that are already doing a great job. United Way, Grind Out Hunger, Second Harvest, Boys and Girls Club, the home shelters for the kids. I mean, the list goes on and on. But if the team, through its collaboration, can help those organizations succeed and feed whatever creative energy we have back into the community that way, then the way we touch lives is much broader. I mean, it's funny because when people talk about the potential negatives of this stadium, they talk about noise as being one of them. The noise that they never consider is the noise of the two kids who were laughing, whose only Christmas presents might have come from the team toy drive, or the family who's celebrating a holiday feast from the food drive, or the parents whose child in a tough accident is getting a blood transfusion from the blood drive. When you think of the power of the team plugging in, when you create a public forum, the type of noise, the applause for our educators that we bring out and say, hey, these are the best. Let's celebrate them as a community. Or you hear the people cheering or singing at the top of their lungs, God bless America, on military night for the men and women who serve this country. These are noises that ripple throughout the whole community and then come back. And it's the power of minor league ball. If you don't succeed at that piece, you can't succeed in minor league sports in any community. And so a real key part of that is the coaching staff, the players, the role models, and the accessibility of those players to the community. And I thought maybe, Nate, you might have a point of view about how the team, and as a coach, you're obviously evaluated on your competitiveness, but this is a huge plank for you as it relates to the business solution. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just, as you were talking there, this is a chance, for the community to really get to know our guys for the Santa Cruz Warriors. You're involved with the NBA, and those NBA players, they're hard to get to. There's lots of, security and things, and it's hard to build a relationship with those guys, if you live in the city or the community. But our guys are going to be out in the community during the holidays, during all parts of the year, not just single parts. I look at our practice schedule now, and it's also, on my practice schedule, it's an appearance schedule to where our guys are going to be at certain places greeting fans. So we'll put on basketball camps, and these guys they'll be a big part of the community, and you'll get to know them very closely.
The thing I heard, and I love it, you guys are not coming in not knowing how you're going to implement this. You've got a plan. You've had a successful plan in your past years, with the years that you bring to the table. You know what you're doing. You know what I'm hearing, and obviously it's a cliche. I'm hearing a franchise, like we see a coffee company from Seattle that we know about, and they've got it down where somebody comes in and buys into the franchise. They know that franchisee is going to be successful. And I'm always blown away by that because they've done the demographics. They've been there. They've done that. They know what their marketplace is. You guys know what your marketplace is to make Santa Cruz a success in terms of plugging your players into our youth. I coached basketball and baseball and all that. I wasn't a player. I was a volunteer dad. It was either do the thing or we're not going to have a team. Right. And I love that kind of stuff. I loved a lot of that happened that I kind of got wind of. I sensed it, that there were people out there because they were committed to this community. And that's what I'm hearing. Capitola roots. Whoa, you're around the corner from me. I'm taken by that because you've got some kind of neat old commitment that you're renewing to our community. And there's something that you just can't put a price on that. I really like that. I'm hearing some really good things. Nate, in terms of where you're coming in, I know that that's part of what you're doing. There's been all kinds of stuff in all the papers. They've been, touting what you guys are bringing to the table and how positive it is. And again, I just haven't heard any negative at all. I've heard some little, challenges. I haven't heard any negatives. I've heard nothing but good. And I think that the reason that I wanted to do this show about the Warriors is because I wanted to solidify that and talk about specific kinds of stuff that you do. And I think that's where we're getting. That's where we're going, I should say, and that's what we're getting to. And I think our viewing audience needs to hear that kind of stuff too. Because so far it's been watching, the city council talk about what they talk about, city planning. And by the way, I've been here for a lot of years. To get through the planning process that quick, you've got some people behind you. I love that. I think that the opportunity for the city to see you guys in a real positive light, I believe that's a big reason why a lot of this has gone through so quickly.
Yeah, I would want to jump in and say I think that the Warriors and the Warriors organization bring a lot to the table, but we're not the reason that this is going to succeed. And Nate will be the first one to tell you, you might intellectually understand the triangle offense, but if you don't have the personnel to run it, it doesn't matter how well you understand it. And we do intellectually understand the map, the road map, if you will, but it's really the community that makes the final decision. They're the ones that the energy comes from. They're the ones that have to adapt this as a passion. They're the ones that have to feel their heart go faster when we're point behind with 7 seconds left to go. I mean, they're the ones that make this real. Yeah. We bring a stage, if you will. We're like the touring, the old touring theaters of the past, where we bring the show. But the people who make the show is the community itself, and it's the passion of these kids and parents that you're talking about that we want to try and actually connect and make work. But the best business strategy in the world is pointless if you can't make an emotional connection to the people who bring it to life.
Very good. Your previous experience, Jim, it's helped you throughout the process of bringing the Warriors to Santa Cruz. Let's talk about that.
Well, I've been involved in a lot of large and small scale projects. Spent 12 years, obviously, in government, working for 3 mayors. First job was with the U.S. Senator, and I think that understanding that a city, frankly, can do anything it wants to do. A city that's motivated can change its world if it wants to do it. And what you need is the right combination of elements, as in any project, to come together and create enough energy to create kind of that emotional connection to want to go forward and test your limits. And there's no question that in the last 6 months, the city of Santa Cruz and the people who work for the city manager, I mean, these are the unsung heroes of this story. I mean, we're getting all the press, but the fact is they ought to have the entire building team on the front page of the Sentinel, because without their work, their willingness to take a look at a different model in an environment that is incredibly difficult to change. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard how many people it's taken them, a year or 2 years to get a permit for their deck, let alone figure out how to drive a project of this size through in 6 months. Yeah. And then that cash throws some shadow of dispersion about the quality of the process. And the crazy part is you can't violate the process or the laws just because you're doing it quick. You can't do that. I mean, we're held to every standard anybody else is held to. And
I know the construction company, and they're A1. They've been around for ages. They're a local company. I already like what I'm seeing, because that's a large, large scale, one of our largest scale projects that we've seen in our community in a while. and they're busting it, and they're an A1. They're excellent. They're one of the top construction firms, I believe, probably in the Monterey Bay. You guys did well. You chose somebody well, and I think I'm positive. I'm real confident they will get it done. Being that you were involved in politics, you know that when they put a construction site together, they're on a schedule, and they're gonna meet their goals. They're gonna do what they promised to do. And they're held to this standard, and so I feel like that's not even going to be an issue. I think it's going to be done. I feel confident.
I think the construction is going to be done. I think the point that maybe I wasn't making, is dramatic enough is you don't even get to this stage without a whole bunch of people at City Hall, city staffers. They don't get a bonus for taking this kind of risk. They're not motivated by any goal outside of what's in their hearts is the best interest for Santa Cruz.
Yes.
And, it's not that they may not feel that way about every single project that's come through before, but certainly without their extraordinary contribution to this process, we're not even sitting here tonight, looking at the rebarb starting to come up.
Sure.
Down at the side, and it gets overlooked sometimes just because of the role that they play. But the city was a tremendous partner. There's no way we get to where we are today without the city of Santa Cruz working just as hard as we've been working to make this whole project happen.
The city of Santa Cruz has done a wonderful job. We've seen it all, and they've come to the plate in other circumstances. And that just goes without saying, they're awesome. They're always out for the benefit of our community. And we've got some wonderful municipalities that do the same. The county does it. We've got a lot of folks that work in the capacity of volunteerism, like Second Harvest Food. There's just all kinds of those places and folks around. This is one of the most giving communities I think that I've ever been associated with, either business-wise or personally lived in. And that goes without saying. And again, I'm behind you on that, 100%. I think that the city has seen something that the average person didn't. The branding of a professional athletic team with Santa Cruz. We're going to be seen differently, I believe. I'd like you, if you can, talk about that, because it happened in San Jose. San Jose, of course, is a big city. They've got all kinds of other stuff happening for them. But there was this branding thing that took place when they came in, and they're seen as, a professional, athletic-oriented city. How would you say that that's going to affect our community? I think I'm already thinking I know how it's going to affect our community. It's going to be real positive. But how would you see that in a small community like ours? And let's talk about that a little bit. That branding.
I think it creates, over time, when you look back, it creates generations of traditions. And when I think about the experience at the San Jose Giants, the traditions of it's where many people learn how to sing the national anthem. Many kids, it's the first place where they go as a family and taste popcorn or cotton candy or whatever it is. These are very, very powerful memories and very, very powerful part of family and community, about how we raise our families, how we stay connected to each other. The success in San Jose is about the people of San Jose. The success in Santa Cruz will be the same. It will come down to is the community at large, the individuals who live here and breathe here, do the Santa Cruz Warriors live in their hearts? Are they top of mind? I'm not talking about, is it bigger than world peace, but I'm talking about, is this a tradition of who we are as a community? And I think that we all believe the answer to that is going to be absolutely. That we're going to bring this brand of basketball that our coach is going to deliver on the floor, that our organization is going to deliver every day in terms of the way we interact. And at the end of the day, we hope that this first generation who takes it this year will find the same benefits that they find driving over the hill, going to other sporting events, but making this Santa Cruz their own and making our team their own, the home team, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, again, it's an overused statement, but if we're the home team in Santa Cruz, that'd be the greatest accomplishment we could ever do in the first year.
Ah, nice. I love hearing that, Jim. Thank you. We could talk for an hour, but we got to have a coach here get in.
Well, it's much more interesting to listen to actually about what we're going to be doing on the floor.
Yeah, that excites, I think, a lot of folks out there. People that I talk to are all into that part of it as well as the business part of it. But certainly that's important as well. And we're going to come back anyways to each of you, and we'll give you a kind of a couple of minute summary type thing. Coach Nate, again, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you do so well. For those who might not know, first of all, give us a layperson's explanation of what the D-League is. What's that all about, and the association with the NBA franchise, and what's the connection, and how does it work? And we'll talk a little bit about the players and all kinds of neat things.
Sure. The D-League is basically the minor league basketball of the NBA. What you're going to find is excellent players, an excellent brand of basketball. It's like what Jim was talking about. The D-League is everything that the NBA is, with basically younger players that haven't had their big moment as of yet. The D-League, you know, the D stands for developmental. So basically what happens is, on our team, the Santa Cruz Warriors, will have maybe an assigned player from the Golden State Warriors. There might be one guy, maybe two. You'll see different guys throughout the year, guys that have been first round and second round draft picks in the NBA that are maybe in their rookie season or their first or second year that are going to be playing on our team. The great thing for the fans to see is our opponents, the teams that we're playing, they're going to see the same thing. They might have a favorite team back east or something. So guys that come to our arena here, they're going to have, the teams that we play are going to have first and second round NBA draft picks on their team. So basically what it is it's a brand of basketball that's at a very high level. There'll be guys on the floor that can, no question, play in the NBA. And you'll surround those guys with other guys on the floor that might be minor league basketball players that have played in Europe over the last few years, that have played all over the world. So you're going to see an experienced group of guys.
So would you guess that, or would you guess? Would you think that for the person that's out there trying to put it all together and wondering what kind of level of play is going to be at the games, is it above the collegiate level and slightly below the NBA? Is it something in between? It sounds like you've got some key players, like first and second round draft choices for the NBA. We're going to get some real pros.
Well, I guess everybody needs to understand this is big-time basketball. It's at a much higher level than college basketball. I mean, these guys that are playing on my team were All-Americans. I mean, these guys that'll be playing for the Santa Cruz Warriors were the elite college basketball players in their time.
I don't think a lot of people know that.
Right.
Let's stop for a second. Let's talk about that, because that's going to be a draw, among a lot of other things, but that's going to be a huge draw. We might get, you've got some great players that came up from the San Jose Giants and won our game today that we won. And we were talking about them a little bit earlier. We may get a player or two or three like that go up and they end up breaking all kinds of national records and do all kinds of club records breaking and all kinds of things like that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's, the best players in the D-League, they were the best players that you watch on TV during college basketball games. And what a lot of people don't know is you watch those college basketball games all year, there might only be 20 guys from college basketball that get to play, in the NBA at some point every year. So the percentage of being an NBA player is very, very small. And if you're this close to being an NBA player, the D-League is a great place to be. We got guys on our team that you may see this year. Tommy Smith was drafted by the Bulls. He played at Arizona State. Taylor Griffin, the brother of Blake Griffin, played for us last year, played at Oklahoma. Steph Hanna led the nation in steals at Missouri. Mo Baker was at Oklahoma State. And big-time player, has been called up to the NBA 2 different times. I mean, these guys are no joke. They are men, and they play the game very well.
Jeez, that's neat. That's mind-blowing. That's cool. Give us a parallel to what we might see coming through in of course, the basketball world compared to, let's say, what you guys saw, what you saw, especially Jim, with the San Jose Giants? Give us some names, some famous folks, so that people out there viewing know what we might see that are basketball players coming up the ranks that we would have had first-time exposure to, that could have been coaching or putting on clinics for our kids, working at one of our nonprofits, plugged into a church, or whatever they're going to do. A couple people. There was somebody famous that hit
I'm going to jump in the most obvious, because that's the only one I'd want to speak to from basketball, but Nate can do the rest, is, of course, Jeremy Lin played for the Dakota team, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago now. Obviously is singularly the most recognized player, right or wrong, that's come out of the D-League on a national basis. But if you had been in Bismarck, North Dakota 2.5 seasons ago, you would have watched Jeremy Lin start his career with that team in the D-League. But there are certainly others.
The names that come to my mind, I've actually coached 3 guys that have won NBA rings, NBA titles. These names aren't that familiar to a lot of fans, but some of them are. Earl Barron, he won a ring with the Miami Heat the first time they won it, when they had D. Wade and Shaq. I think it was in '07, could be wrong on that. I've coached Shannon Brown, who won a ring with the LA Lakers. Big-time player, was in the NBA Slam Dunk Contest. Joel Anthony, I coached, who won a ring this year with the Miami Heat. He was a backup center. The list goes on and on. There's 3 guys that have won rings, but most of the D-League guys that you see, they'll end up being maybe the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th man on that team, but 25% of NBA players have spent time in the NBA D-League, and a lot of people don't know that.
How come they don't stay in the, or let's say they get the first or second round draft, and they're not at the franchise level, the NBA level, and then they stay there? How come? What do they do? Why do they come down?
It's a great question. That's basically what the D-League is all about, what you're asking me. A lot of those draft picks, you find guys in the NBA, there's lots of veterans who are outstanding players. So guys that get picked right away, instead of just practicing all year with the Golden State Warriors or any other NBA team, they want to get them some playing time. So when Golden State sends guys down to me, number one, they want them to play 30-plus minutes a night. They want them to have some success. So it's my job to develop their skills and at the same time put them in winning situations. We want guys, when they leave the Santa Cruz Warriors and go back to Golden State, to feel like they're ready, to know that they played in big-time games, close games, had the ball in their hands on the last second. All of those things can help them towards their future, with the Golden State Warriors. So that question is probably the biggest tool as far as the coaching playing side of the D-League.
So they're getting exposed to a very different kind of feel compared to, let's say, being an All-American or some really hot shot coming out of 4-year college somewhere. It's a different world altogether when they start playing pro. So what you're trying to do is give them the exposure on the D-League to playing at that level, which is all top of the top. And so they just need more time with that level of play to be able to compete and not sit the bench necessarily at the NBA level? That's
exactly right. And what the D-League is it's basically an investment league. The players that are being assigned from Golden State and other NBA teams, they're making their NBA money, they're getting their NBA experience, they're getting playing time from me. Our team will also be filled with 4 or 5 other guys that are trying to invest in the D-League to maybe get a big-time job over in Europe. Maybe they play a successful year for us here in Santa Cruz, and the next year they go over to Spain or Israel or Italy and make $250,000 a year. So it's a great chance. It's the best exposure league in the world. All of our games are live streamed on the internet. There'll be games on national television. The D-League keeps getting more and more exposure, each and every year of my 6 years being involved in the D-League.
How many NBA franchises do we have, and how many of those have D-Leagues where they feed into them?
Right now, there's 16 D-League teams. 11 of those 16 D-League teams are either owned or operated by an NBA club. Like, for example, the Santa Cruz Warriors were owned and operated by the Golden State Warriors. There's 30 NBA teams, so we're getting there. The D-League keeps growing, and you're going to see it grow and grow, maybe by 2 or 3 teams every year. Maybe in the end, I think the goal of the D-League is to get like minor league baseball, to where every major league baseball team has a minor league AAA team. It maybe will get 1-to-1 in the future. The teams that aren't owned and operated by an NBA team, they might have 3 or 4 affiliates right now. There's a few, like I said, there's about 4 or 5 independent teams out there that might get to work with 3 or 4 teams, but nothing is better as far as a coach or a player to be owned and operated by one NBA team, just for my access and the players' access. I mean, I just drove back from Oakland today, being involved in training camp, and once our players get to town, they'll go back and forth from Oakland and Santa Cruz, and it's a big time advantage.
Yeah, I think Major League Baseball, figured out in its origins because of the number of people coming in and the time it took to develop from the college level to the professional level was a longer time frame than I think really even perhaps for the NBA. They needed different levels for the players to get game time experience. You can't replicate the experience of a game and the speed of the game in practice. I mean, I think you would agree there's just no way to do that. So you have to have an environment for them to develop and play in. Some of the kids obviously that came up through the San Francisco Giants program, the Giants made a very conscious decision 6 years ago to say, the free agency market is so expensive, we really need to think about enhancing and strengthening the development of our own players.
What's the free agent market?
Well, if you're going to go out and pay for a veteran whose contract is expired, and you're going to go out there and try and pay $20 million for somebody to come in and play a year versus developing that person through your system, you can't end up paying those kinds of salaries to too many people before you max up against your salary cap, and pretty soon, you're stuck. You're really stuck. And the Warriors historically, we found ourselves with some big-time contracts with some players who didn't perform at the level of expectation. And once you make those kinds of financial commitments, you're really stuck with that for a while because they're difficult to unload. So instead of having to rely on just free agents, veteran players whose contracts have expired, who are great players, but they're going to cost you a lot of money, the idea is to develop talent internally. So you look at the Giants in 2010, the World Series team, 10 of those 25 kids played in San Jose the previous 6 years.
How many?
10.
10 of 25?
Yeah. And of the team that won today in Game 5 in Cincinnati, you have even more. Sandoval, Posey, Crawford, Bell, I mean, the list goes on and on, Lincecum, Kane, they all came through the development system. So when Joe Lacob, who's our owner of the Warriors, and I sat down 2 years ago, and we're just having coffee and having a conversation about what are some of the other ways that the team is looking at, and the Golden State Warriors are looking at how to get better. One is, improve your basketball talent, your coaches, your scouting, your ability to attract free agents. But there's another side of the equation, which is the development of your own talent. And it was really Joe's son, Kurt Lacob, who's the general manager of our team, I think, who really saw the vision of the D-League very early on. And he was the guy, I mean, we may get some of the visibility and credit, but it was really Kirk who drove the decision within the Golden State Warrior organization to invest in a D-League team, and understanding that we think we can bring players out of this system that are going to help us compete for the playoffs this year. I mean, we're doing all of this, in 6 months or whatever. We're not doing it to set records, or we're not doing it to impress municipalities across California. We're doing it because we want to win in Oakland. I mean, we love Santa Cruz. We love what the team's going to bring and all of that. Yeah. But the whole reason, the whole motivation behind what we're doing is to win at the NBA level. And we think that Nate has some players, and his coaches, himself and his coaches, have the talent to get some help out of the D-League to that bench, who may be the one guy when you got 2 injuries down the stretch who comes off and hits the three-pointer that sends you into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of the American dream promise of the D-League, is to be that guy who steps in due to injury or whatever, and all of a sudden helps the parent club get to the NBA playoffs.
Kirk is part of, he's the part of the family that owns the NBA franchise. Tell me how he's connected, in what capacity. I know he's definitely connected. I read a few articles to the Santa Cruz Warriors, because I think that's significant that people know that there's this real tight, constant ongoing thing that goes back and forth. And you've got some really neat things behind you in the Santa Cruz Warriors to the NBA team. I think people might want to know a little bit about that connection. It's a good one, too.
Absolutely. I mean, Kirk's my partner in this deal. I mean, what's his role? He has an equal role as myself or Nate or anybody in running this team.
Now his dad owns the family owns the franchise.
Joe's the managing partner of the team. There's a broader, ownership group that's involved that includes Peter Guber and a number of other people. Mm-hmm. So there are other members of the ownership group, but Joe is the managing partner of the group, which means makes kind of the day-to-day decisions that go into working with Rick Welts, who's obviously one of the most experienced guys ever in the NBA, who's our president of the Golden State Warriors. So, but Kirk is really a key part of why we're here as well, because I think there are a lot of skeptics. There certainly were a lot of skeptics in January when we talked about coming to Santa Cruz, especially since everybody would say, well, they don't have a building.
Yeah.
I mean,
a little challenge.
Yeah, pretty essential to the basketball game to have a building.
Yeah.
So you got to believe, you got to have a lot of faith, you got to have a good roadmap. But Kirk's the reason, I think, a huge motivating factor as to why we invested in a team, and I think he's a huge part of our success today in being here. His commitment to this project is no less passionate than ours, and so we really view all of us really kind of as equals in this venture, and at the end of the day, Kirk's formal title is general manager of the Santa Cruz Warriors, which means he's Nate's boss, and Kirk is also an assistant general manager for the big club, the Golden State Warriors.
Wow.
So Kirk handles the basketball side with Nate, and then I handle the business side with the rest of our front office.
Wow, good stuff. Talk about, if we could, Coach Nate, a little bit about, and if you want to chime in too as well, Jim, we've got a 2,600-seat stadium coming in. Mm-hmm. Talk about being on that schedule and how is that's going to be done prior to the 23rd, because we got tip-off time, right? The 23rd. How many games are we going to have a week, and how often are they going to play? Where do they practice most of the time? All kind of the nuts and bolts of the stuff.
Well, let's start with the construction schedule, and I can have Nate take you through the typical basketball day, because I think it's kind of interesting and to understand their schedule. Understand that he has no small task in having to start with 7 games on the road because of the construction schedule.
So the season will start prior to...
Season starts November 30th. We tip off in Reno, and Nate's got to figure out how to keep our guys energized through a lot of other teams' openings before they play home. Yeah. And it's not an easy task, because you need your crowd's energy to refill that creative energy. Yeah. So, we get through that, that first part of the season. We've got, obviously then we pick up with a very heavy back end of the schedule with a lot of home games, which is great. So as you get ready to move through the playoffs.
How long does the season go? Tip off to the end at home? Or?
Well, through the championship series, I think we're into probably the second week in April.
Yep, yeah. into mid to late April.
We're deviating a little. Where does the championship normally? Where's it played? Is it depending on what records are?
It's played at the home team, the higher seeds home court. So the better you can do in the regular season and the playoff run that you can make, the more home games you can play. So, that's the goal. That's the goal from us, right at the beginning is we want to host playoff games here in Santa Cruz, and we want to lift the trophy here in Santa Cruz on Game 2 or Game 3 of the finals.
All right. Now, when you get that trophy, you got to come back onto the show. Is that a promise?
That's a promise. We'll be all over town with that.
Absolutely, everywhere.
Yeah. We're going to have a little parade just for you guys down the middle of Santa Cruz.
We won't be hard to find.
Yeah. That's going to be cool. What's been the most exciting part for you, Nate, in terms of your move for you and your family?
Yeah, I love to coach basketball and I love to travel. So this will be my third D-League city, and I've lived in a number of states, whether I was as a player or a coach. So the move out here it's been unbelievable. I mean,
now you're enjoying the weather, I'm sure, comparatively.
The weather's unbelievable. This is going to be by far the best D-League city. I don't say that lightly. The players are going to come here and be wowed. They're going to love playing here, practicing here, and it'll also serve as a motivation. My practices will be better. They'll play harder. They will. They're going to enjoy the community. I make a note to go look at the ocean 3, 4, 5 times a day. I just think it's beautiful here. So, and my family is enjoying it very well.
Okay, that's cool. In terms of the assignment of players and the development of players, we talked a little bit about that. But I want to talk a little bit more about that relationship. Could you give us a little bit more detail, either of you can chime in about this, in terms of the team over the hill in Oakland, when they have, let's say, a championship, how is that reflected back to the D team? Is it is it a separate thing? Is there a tie-in? Do they feel like they're part of it? Do they go to their games? The D-League folks that are playing here, are they involved in that way, or they're just so involved in playing here, this is all that they've got time for?
Well, I'll answer, and I'll let Jim answer it as well. But the part of like assignment players, when Golden State assigns us a player this year, he'll be able, the great part of having a D-League team in Santa Cruz is we're an hour and 15 minutes away from Oakland. So a lot of times when players come down, they'll be accompanied by a coach. That coach will sit with us on the bench. Last year we had 2 players from the Golden State Warriors that made the trip to Bismarck. We may have had more. It was an all-day flight just to get to Bismarck, North Dakota. Now they can practice, and let's say we have a game on a Saturday night. They can practice in the morning with Golden State at 10 a.m. and they can drive right to Santa Cruz and play for us that night. So I think you're going to see, this is Kirk's decision, Bob Myers, Coach Jackson, when they assign guys. But I think you're going to see some guys be assigned to our team, and more than just 2 guys. We might see, a few guys that put on a jersey. But it's more of a back and forth relationship. And we talked about Kirk. Kirk Lacob, you will see daily. In Santa Cruz, he'll be at our games. You'll see more than just Kirk. There might be some more coaches that make the trip. There'll be a ton of front office people that make the trip. And every time that happens, there's again, I always talk to you about the coaching side of this. It really motivates the players. A player see Bob Myers or Kirk Lacob, in the stands. Everybody's dream is to get called up to the NBA, so they're going to play harder.
So I guess what I was hinting at a little bit, you covered it pretty well. If the players, or I should say the fans here, are looking for some big name that's been in Oakland for a while, from time to time, are they going to see those folks come in here, and let's say encouraging somebody they had played with, saying hi to Coach or hi to Jim? Is that kind of stuff kind of, I mean, of course, you're going to see them because they're, 2 feet taller than I am, so there's a basketball player. Yeah. Is that stuff going to happen, would you guess?
Well, it could. It's a great question, too, because players in their first, second, or third year can get assigned to our D-League team in Santa Cruz. It could also be a rehab assignment. If there's a player on the Golden State Warriors who's in his 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th year plus, he can't be automatically assigned on a rehab assignment. The player has to agree to it as well. But you could see some big names, and when those big names and big faces come to Santa Cruz, you'll know about it in advance through the papers, the radios, the television. But I'll let Jim go further.
I mean, outside of that, there's a lot of support from the big clubs. So, for instance, on opening day, the big club plays the Lakers on the night before we open, and then they have a 4-day break. So we're working now with Golden State to see, you know, how many of our actual players on our roster would be available to come down on opening night, be a part of the festivities down here, and actually meet and greet the fans as well.
So the timing is kind of where you coordinate a little bit so that actually can happen.
Absolutely.
A little bit. Okay.
And you'll also see legends. You'll see, you know, Rick Barry down here. You'll see, you know, Nate Thurman. You'll see
Maybe Jerry West.
Yeah, Jerry West will definitely be down here. In fact,
cool.
we'd probably get Jerry on your show.
Yeah.
He's all these guys are part of the family, and if we win and compete well at Golden State, it'll mirror and ripple all the way down here. I mean, I have a 2010 World Series ring from the San Francisco Giants because we ran a developmental. I ran a developmental team for them. It would be no different in our world.
Talk about that for a second, and maybe in a minute, because we're going to go to a summary here, and we're actually at about another 8 minutes, and I want you guys to both. But let's talk about that a little bit. How does that reflect when, let's say, the franchise team does something? They go to the playoffs and stuff like that. How does the general populace out in the baseball community, well, you did baseball, but we're talking about basketball, see that with the minor league or the feeder team that we've got here? Do they see it as kind of part of the same?
Oh, absolutely. The first thing you're going to see is that Santa Cruz, as a city, is going to get introduced to every single Golden State Warrior fan, you know, in California, because all of the big club fans are watching the developmental league to see which players are playing who are going to come up and help the big league club. And then when one of our players gets a call up, then our Santa Cruz fans go to Oracle to watch them because they saw them grow up, so to speak. But the Golden State fans, the NBA fans up there, have already seen them play. So there's a huge link. It's all part of the family. I wouldn't say big brother, little brother, you know, maybe, you know, it's more like cousins sometimes, but it's definitely family. And it's definitely something that a Santa Cruz Warrior fan walking around up in Northern California is going to get greeted by any Golden State Warrior fan as if they're brothers.
Cool. Could you talk real quickly about your supporting staff folks? I've been talking to somebody on the phone when we kind of got everybody lined up and some questions to bring in your bios. We've got Matt. You've got some other folks that are just down the street, literally down the street from the studio, and talk about what they do and how they might be accessible. And who might want to talk to them? Would it? I guess when I'm hinting at it, would it be, let's say, the local coach over at Cabrillo calls, let's say, Matt, and says, "Hey, could we whatever?" Or let's say Soquel Union Elementary School says, "We'd like to have one of your guys come out and talk to our coach out there and maybe introduce himself to some of our players." Or at Santa Cruz High, we've had some really good teams, high school teams that have done really well in the past. How would that work if somebody wanted to do that and connect with the team? Would he connect with one of you gentlemen, or would it be Matt? Or
I think the simplest and most direct way is go to the website, and you'll see on their instructions if it's a community affairs related request, or if it's a marketing request, or if it's a booking request. That all of that information is laid out on the website on who you would contact along with the contact information.
What kind of people might contact you? What entities? Would it be schools? Would it be churches? Would it be?
Frankly, everybody does. And it's great. I mean, last week had a church call say we do a pajama drive for the kids in the shelters. The numbers were really down last year. Can you help? Yeah, if we can help, if we can figure out how to do something in their time frame, we're happy to do it. All the way to much more formal requests when Kirk Lakeup sat down with all of the ADs from all of the school districts in Santa Cruz County and talked about, hey, if you guys want to play a game in the new building, here's how to do it. So we answer every question that comes on the web. We'll, no matter what the question is, and we get people directed to the right places.
So you encourage that for sure, it sounds like. It sounds like that's what you guys are about, being plugged into the community, being accessible, being helpful, and then you know, reaching out with the contacts that you have to these professional players to our local community of kids, adults, and everybody in between.
And, I guess very quickly, too, this is we talked about the level of basketball that this is going to be. I find myself, in timeouts, in half times, I'm coaching and I can't see it, but when we're watching the game, later that night, I mean, this is NBA entertainment. You're going to see halftime shows. I'll be watching with my assistant. I'll be like, that's unbelievable, seeing the stuff that goes on. So this is a great place for not only basketball fans, but, for all just entertainment fans in general. And I guess, one last thing is Jim has won a championship at the minor league level, and I won a championship in the D-League as well. And that championship was, Jim touched on this earlier, it was brought home by the fans. We were down 7 in the fourth quarter, and our fans all stood on their feet the entire fourth quarter, and they brought us back. And, I get goosebumps here talking to you about it today. I mean, it was awesome and unbelievable. And this arena is going to be beautiful. It's going to be family entertainment, and I look forward to meeting everybody and having a good time here.
Very good. If you were given a minute and a half, if you could summarize Jim, and then we will finish with you, Nate, and then I'm going to plug a couple shows that we have coming, and we have about that amount of time left. Take it away, Jim.
I mean, it's really simple. We're very excited to be here, and we think in any merger, marriage, relationship, whatever you want to use in terms of the context, both parties have to bring something to the table that makes something bigger than what they were by themselves. And I think that this marriage between the Santa Cruz Warriors and the city of Santa Cruz is going to bring a lot of joy and excitement to the community. And we're just happy to be a part of it. We hope that we're embraced by the community, and we hope that we can be a part of it.
That's cool. Can I high five you now?
Absolutely.
Nate, let's talk about just if you could sum everything up in a minute and a half.
We're basically, what we are is an extension of the Golden State Warriors. I've spent the last couple weeks in training camp with Golden State, studying their offensive schemes, their defensive philosophy. What you'll see them run on television, or if you go to Oracle Arena, we'll be running the same thing. The play calls will be named the same. Our defensive terminology will be the same. And these guys, like I touched on before, they're very, very good at what they do. Outstanding basketball players that you will see in the NBA. And teams that come to Santa Cruz, that's even going to be fun for a lot of the fans as well. You're going to see a number of different teams, a number of different players come in that are excellent ball players that are going to be playing in the NBA. And, just as a coach and speaking on behalf of the players, we need the fans. We need you, need your support. And I look forward, like I said before, of getting to know everybody here. And these players that are coming to Santa Cruz are excellent, excellent people. They're great guys to get to know, and they're going to work very hard for everybody.
Sweet. I can speak on behalf of everybody I've talked to, and they welcome the Warriors with open arms. Not one negative comment from anybody about anything. Again, challenges, yes. Like you were quoted, I think, in the newspaper about some challenges that always occur in this kind of, setting up, all the stadium and all those kinds of things. So those are no hill for a climber. So if I can speak on behalf of our community, we welcome you. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I'm just, in awe with both of your enthusiasm, and I'm positive, I'm very confident that our community will be out there reciprocating in many ways. And thank you so much for being on the show this
Thanks
evening.
for having us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been great.
Let me do a little quick plug on future shows. Again, this is Let's Talk with Lue, and we are a interactive show. So anytime you get a chance, anytime you want to call me or write me and let me know who you'd like to have on the show, this is your show. Call in, and thank you so much for listening this evening to Let's Talk. Thank you.